The prospect of Ripple and Circle becoming national charter banks is something that banks are utterly afraid about. Specifically, the reason for this is that their technology is superior to the SWIFT system. The majority of the activities that your bank is currently performing can be replaced by it. They are able to do it more effectively at a lower cost and in an instant, which is why there is apprehension in the market at the moment over Ripple's ability to obtain a banking license. For the purpose of providing you with a comprehensive understanding of the situation at hand, we are going to take a look at some new data that was compiled by Paul Barron. Additionally, Chad Steingraber posted this on FIS Circle and RippleNet, which stated that FIS transactions will be using USDC. However, I went and looked at this farther down this rabbit hole, and I will provide you with all of the information that pertains to that. In the final portion of the video, I also have a great deal of more information regarding XRP. Maintain vigilance for that. As for Paul Barron, here he is. There is a lot of pressure on Ripple's banks. BPI has just made an attempt to prevent Ripple from obtaining a banking license. Let us not forget who BPI represents, an industry lobbying group, and let us also remember RLUSD and XRP. The Bankers Practice Institute, BPI, is a lobbying and policy advocacy organization that represents 42 of the largest banks in the United States. With that being said, if you are receiving payment from the 42 major banks in the United States, it is evident that there is a financial motive here to put an end to this at any cost. Because in the event that these banks, let's just say a couple of them collapse or they are unable to pay maybe as much money to the lobbying firm, this lobbying company may be out of a lot of money. And because of this, they are going to do everything that they possibly can right now to prevent this from occurring. It's a little bit depressing, isn't it? This is because it would assist in providing our banks with the technologies that would allow us to save money, because they generate billions of dollars every year from charging us fees to transfer our own money around the world. They are not interested in making you and I save money. This is the reason why they are not interested in saving money. All of this may be accomplished for a fraction of a penny by utilizing the technology that Ripple provides. And this is the thing that they are most concerned about. The Central Bank of India, BPI, contends that the public had only 2.5 weeks to study Ripple's application, which was from July 16 to August 4. This is insufficient for a banking application that is so innovative and involves operations related to cryptocurrencies. As a result of regulatory ambiguity, the reaction indicates that the traditional banking industry considers Ripple's crypto banking hybrid model as potentially problematic. This could have an impact on the decision-making process of the OCC. Jamie Dimond is among the board members of the BPI. Absolutely fascinating, to say the least. In addition to Charles Scharf from Wells Fargo, Brian Monahan from Bank of America was also there. Do you agree that it is interesting to view two of these three out of the three? There are customers of Ripple, including Bank of America and Wells Fargo, Citibank, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, BNY Mellon, PNC Bank, State Street, Truist, and US Bank are among the many other financial institutions that are included in this group. All of the financial institutions who stand to lose a great deal if the Ripple technology is accepted. After all, they stand to lose a great deal. On the other hand, they stand to gain a great bit. Consider the possibility that they can continue to generate enormous profits by permitting, for example, a bank that would ordinarily charge $50 for a transaction. It's possible that the transaction, in the event that they would like to use a service, the XRP ledger, they may still pay Ripple or like to pay a half cent or a penny, and they would still have every single conceivable profit in their possession. I would be very interested in learning more about the actual fees that these banks pay in order to make use of some of these rails. It is important to keep in mind that some of these banks receive compensation from other banks in order to utilize their tracks. And these banks obviously, oh man, I am going to look into it. I'm going to look into that further. So what took place? Ripple, a leading cryptocurrency firm, payments provider, and the issuer of the XRP ledger cryptocurrency and RLUSD, submitted an application to the Office of Comptroller Currency in July 2025 in order to get a national banking license as a financial institution in the United States. This step is a component of a more comprehensive goal, with the goal of becoming a digital-first bank that is authorized by the federal government and strengthening regulatory oversights over a stablecoin known as RLUSD, the Bank Policy Institute, BPI. Already, we have just finished going through all of it, so there is no need for us to provide you all of that as well. In response to the opposition, the British Petroleum Industry, BPI, and other significant banking associations, such as the American Banking Association and other organizations of a similar nature, sent public comment letters to the OCC, pushing them to either delay or forego the approval. It's almost like having both. Ripple and Circle are currently being obstructed by a number of larger institutions that are currently being moved forward. Despite the fact that it's fairly crazy, I mean, we had to have known that this was going to happen, right? It was as if we had seen this written on the wall. I was aware that would be some resistance to this as soon as Ripple submitted their application for it. Now, at this point, I would imagine that there will be even more than this, but I will provide you with all of the updates as soon as I see them. For a public review process that is only 2.5 weeks long, BPI and its partners feel that this is insufficient. Generally speaking, this takes roughly 4 months. As a result, it is fascinating to observe that this is taking place after 2.5 weeks. Is it possible that Ripple's banking license might be issued in such a short amount of time? To do this task in such a short amount of time would be an extremely unusual occurrence. Let's wait and see what the OCC decides to do in this situation. In the event that they showed you this application, they have the option of either letting it sit for months or simply rejecting it outright. As a result, the way it turns out will be very interesting. Traditional financial institutions assert that the public portions of Ripple's application do not provide sufficient information regarding the company's business model, and that not all of the ramifications for the banking system are published or explored. In the event that digital asset companies are allowed under decreased oversight or new laws, they issued a warning about the possibility of regulatory gaps. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. What is the bank's opposition? In order to safeguard traditional banking, with the help of blockchain technology, Ripple intends to circumvent well-established correspondent banking networks, such as SWIFT, and provide global deposits that are almost instantaneous. This would pose a threat to the business models of traditional banks. That is the case. There are regulatory loopholes. Ripple, if they are granted a national banking charter without traditional fiduciary AC activities as needed by law, there is a risk that a large number of additional cryptocurrency firms could flood in, which could be a significant problem. For example, consider the possibility that a malicious entity in the cryptocurrency industry, such as Tether, were to obtain a national banking license in the United States. Could you ever fathom it? Oh no, all right. With any luck, not. Through the use of considerable lobbying resources, the BPI and its allies are gaining strength in the lobbying arena. In 2025, the lobbying expenses of BPI alone amounted to $1.3 million. Taking everything into consideration, however, that is not a significant amount of money. The regulatory landscape is not something that we really need to go through. If you are interested in reading all of this, you should be aware that the Genius Act was just recently approved. We are still awaiting additional information regarding the Clarity Act, which is a regulation of digital assets that serves to demonstrate, for example, that this asset is a security and falls under the supervision of the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, or that this asset is a CFTC asset. Now, let's say that Chad Steingraber uploaded this picture. There is a great deal of material presented here. However, I have arranged it in a confusing manner, making it somewhat simpler to navigate through. The relationship between Ripple and FIS is centered on utilizing Ripple's, which is the context of the partnership. When it comes to foreign payments, RippleNet and the XRP ledger are putting an emphasis on increased transaction speed, transparency, liquidity, and settlement. This makes it possible to make international payments more quickly and at a lower cost, and it also supports real-time visibility on fees and exchange rates. I can only imagine what it would be like to know the total amount of your money before you send it. To think about that in the year 2025, isn't that just insane? Well, that is the problem here. If you are sending a payment to a foreign country, you will not be able to determine the amount of fees that you are required to pay until the payment has actually arrived. To put it simply, that is insane. As seen in the graphic, these efforts are aimed at lowering costs, increasing efficiency, and providing opportunities for service to both banks and their clients. When it comes to the United States Currency Council, USCC, There is undeniable proof that the Financial Institution Service, FIS, has collaborated with Circle to enable U.S. financial institutions to provide USDC stablecoin payment options. The native support for USDC on the XRP ledger has been made available. In other words, USDC is created directly on the XRP ledger, and it is not issued as a